I Want You, She's So Heavy is definitely a very creative Simpsons episode. This is the 16th episode of the 30th season, directed by Stephen Dean Moore, and it's one of the lowest rated in quite a while on IMDb. This has 5.8 out of 10 across only 794 reviews and ratings, which actually, while it's quite a low rating, usually the Simpsons episodes have at least 1,000 reviews, but that does kind of suggest that it's not very popular. However, I didn't mind it. I did read a couple of negative reviews online, and some people are saying that the character with the New Zealand accent or apparent New Zealand accent is a problem, which I can understand being the case. It's not something that I picked up on as being a problem, but I can completely understand that perspective. With regards to the narrative itself, I thought it was okay. And normally I don't like cheap gimmicks, but I love the character of the hernia, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Marge and Homer take a tumble down the stairs. Marge has hurt her foot, and Homer now has a hernia. And this hernia talks to him because Dr. Hibbert tells him to listen to his body, which is sound advice. But of course, in true Simpsons fashion, they decide to have some creative fun and make that very literal. And Homer's hernia, well, has some interesting bits of advice for Homer. I'm not saying I loved it and I thought it was the best thing ever and that I completely applaud the decision, but at the same time, I just thought I bought into it. I bought into the humour of this little talking hernia character, and I think it worked very well. So, normally, not my kind of thing, but actually, I found it to be quite appealing. The character, the New Zealand character, as I mentioned, is a fitness instructor who's helping Marge to, well, improve her fitness. And the character's fine, but then something ridiculous happens, but it's a spoiler because, well, I mean, it's not really a spoiler for the narrative, but it is at the end. So I'll discuss that with a spoiler warning in a moment. I could take or leave the character, but if somebody found the character or the accent to be offensive, I can understand where that's coming from. However, as a whole, I didn't mind it. I'm not saying it's the best episode ever, but I thought it was creative, in parts a little different, some really good advice about listening to your body and not overdoing it. Definitely not a 5.8 out of 10. I feel like that's quite a harsh rating. Nevertheless, I personally didn't mind it. I would be happy to watch it again. I'm never going to pick it. It's never going to be my favourite. But perfectly fine. I didn't think it was too horrendous. I'd love to know what other people think of it, but it seems like it's not the most well loved. So, a spoiler for what happened at the end, and this did kind of make me like it a little bit less. At the end, we learn that the New Zealand character, whose name I can't remember, I apologise for that. That's how much I could take or leave the character, I guess. But we learn that he's not who he says he was, and it was such a gimmick and really pointless and just didn't add anything or change my opinion about anything other than making me like the episode a tiny bit less. What I did love, though, and it was so funny because it was unexpected, but also just the way it looked, is when Homer took his head off and it was Chief Wiggum underneath. I just never envisioned Wiggum's head on Homer's body before. And I just thought it was such a funny, unexpected thing that I rather enjoyed that. So even though that ending was terrible, in a way it was kind of worth it for that moment. So in all, I liked this episode. I don't think it deserves quite a low rating, but at the same time, I can see there's room for improvement. I'd say it's pretty much an average episode and ultimately one I wouldn't mind watching again.